Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1988 cult classic, Heathers. Now, this is a film that I'd heard a lot of really good things about over the years. I had read a lot of kind words and a lot of stuff in a lot of other publications and books praising the film. I had seen it discussed in shows on TV, like VH1's out of the 80s. I had seen bits and pieces of it on television. I, for some reason, just never really got around to watching it all the way through until fairly recently. And I am really glad that I did, because I absolutely loved this movie. It spoke to me in so many different ways. I thought it was a brilliant comedy, a brilliant black comedy. It was right up my alley. I love films like this. I love a great black comedy. And Heathers is one of the best that I've personally seen. And I even saw it again just before I decided to record this review. I watched it a second time to see if it still held up, and it definitely did. And I would have to say this is now one of my favorite films, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just doing that to join the bandwagon, okay? I really liked this film. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. There were so many different elements about it that I thought were absolutely excellent. And I definitely do highly recommend the film if you have not seen it already. Especially if you are a fan of black comedies. If you're a fan of dark comedies, then definitely check out Heathers. Now, Heathers was released in March of 1988 to little to absolutely no fanfare. In fact, no fanfare really at all. It cost about $3 million to make. It was released through New World Pictures, and it only made $1 million in the box office. So it was a box office bomb. It didn't really gain new life, or any life for that matter, until home video. And then it started to gain this cult following. And after watching the film, I can totally see why. This is one of those cult films, those cult hits, that deserves the cult following. It deserves the fan base, because it really is legitimately a great film. So, it's directed by Michael Lehmann, who before this had not really directed anything. And for a directorial debut for Michael Lehmann, this was really impressive. He hit a grand slam. And it's really crazy to me to look at the films he did after this. He followed up Heathers with a weird comedy, and I know it's kind of crazy to call, oh, Heathers is weird. Heathers is strange, but it's got nothing on Meet the Applegates, which is an extremely strange, surreal, weird comedy about an insect family, which I still haven't seen, but it's an interesting follow-up to Heathers. And then he directed stuff like Hudson Hawk. I like Hudson Hawk, but it's just crazy for me to associate the director of Heathers with the same guy who directed Hudson Hawk. Two totally different types of films. But even in Hudson Hawk, he showed his unique talent for the surreal and for the strange. This is a guy who definitely is strange and unusual, and that shows up in his direction. It's produced by Denise DeNovi, who would go on to produce a lot of Tim Burton's work and work with him a lot. And it's also written by Daniel Waters, who would go on to work with Tim Burton. So there's a reason why this film has kind of a Tim Burton sort of vibe to it. It feels like if Tim Burton around this time made a black comedy that took place in a high school, this is what you would probably see. At least some semblance of this kind of approach. And that's a good thing, because we're talking about Tim Burton from the late 80s. We're talking about Tim Burton who is starting to get into his prime. And I referenced Tim Burton because, not only because you have Winona Ryder in the cast, but there's a lot of Burton-esque moments in this, in terms of the way the film is shot and lit. There's a nightmare scene especially that looks like something straight out of a Tim Burton movie. And that's a good thing. Like I said, we're talking about Tim Burton in his prime. So that's another reason why I would recommend it to people. If you're a fan of Tim Burton, if you like his work, especially his early work, definitely check out Heathers, because it'll be right up your alley. It also features a score by David Newman, which it's not really a score that I would say is particularly memorable, nor is it a score that really sticks with you, but it fits the film well. So I don't have much to say about the score. It's kind of a synth score that is just there to kind of move the plot along and add a little bit of atmosphere to the film. But it's effective. It's effective. It's not bad. The score doesn't stand out in a bad way. It's a solid score. It's just nothing super spectacular. If there was something about the film that I would say isn't amazing, it's probably David Newman's score. The cinematography by Francis Kenny is absolutely gorgeous. It's got this gothic slant to it, but then it's also got this sort of off-kilter, typical high school 80s movie cinematography, but it's got this, like I said, it's off-kilter. It's got this, there's a little bit of a difference here. Like, there's differences in the way the colors are used and so on, and it's a really great job well done in terms of the cinematography. It's edited by Norman Holland, who does a fantastic, fabulous job editing this movie. This film has some really great editing in it. There's a lot of stuff that goes back and forth in here in terms of not only the plot, but in terms of the characters and a lot of the other moments in the movie. So the editing really adds to the film's quick pacing and makes a lot of the jokes and a lot of the other lines so much more witty because they're edited so well. It's an editor, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated guys or gals involved in making a comedy film. The editor is able to cut out certain jokes that don't quite work, or make the jokes so they don't last too long. A lot of films nowadays, they suffer from the linorama sort of thing, where they just put a camera in front of these talented comedians and have them improv for a long time. And what they don't realize is that type of comedy can get really tiresome, especially if it's just going on and on and on and on and on. And a great editor knows when to cut scenes out, knows when to cut a joke short to maximize its effectiveness. And Heathers is definitely one of those films. I mean, the film is just chock full of great quotes. I mean, fuck me gently with the chainsaw. What do I look like, Mother Teresa? So I mean, there's a lot of great lines in this film. What's your damage, Heather? I love my dead gay son. And there's just a lot of just crazy shit in this film. This film is absolutely nuts, and that's one of the main reasons why I love it so much. This is a film that's irreverent. This is a film that still stands out to this day amongst its peers because of its giant steel balls. Like, this is a film that was extremely ballsy for the time and is still extremely ballsy to this day. And there's a lot of films that it inspired, like Mean Girls and Jawbreaker, and in some instances films like Jennifer's Body and Juno, which Diablo Cody, I think she wrote both of those. And she's a self-expressed huge fan of the film. Now, definitely one of the best things about the film, to me, is the script by Daniel Waters. It is absolutely brilliant. It's a brilliant, spectacular satire of the popular John Hughes-style teenage movie, which was huge back in the 80s. Films like The Breakfast Club and so on. And honestly, after seeing Heathers, you can keep the Breakfast Club, okay? You can take the Breakfast Club. I will take Heathers any day over the Breakfast Club. It's more of my type of film. I don't hate the Breakfast Club. I think it's an alright film. But Heathers, to me, is just it's a much more entertaining movie to me. It's also a film that there's so much more going for it. The Breakfast Club feels like a product of its time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just feels like it's just I don't know, it feels like it's kind of pandering to its audience. This doesn't really feel like anything like that whatsoever. It doesn't feel shallow or hollow like that film does at times. This one has some genuine emotions, some genuine feelings, some genuine laughs, and it's a very genuinely unique experience. And that's why I'm so worried about the reboot. I don't think they're going to be able to recapture the same magic. And I admit I haven't seen the musical, but that doesn't really interest me. I'm a huge fan of the film, but I'm not a big fan of musicals. So that's one of the main reasons why I didn't say anything about the musical, because I haven't seen the musical, and how can I talk about something that I haven't seen? So, and I'm more than likely probably not going to see the musical, but the reboot just seems like it doesn't get the fucking point. It doesn't get the point of what made this film so great. And what made this film so great is that it took some really well-known cliches at the time of the popular girls, the clique, and so on, and the high school movie in general, and it turned it completely upside down. And not only did it just do that, but it also took some of these cliche characters, like these popular, rich, entitled girls, and actually added a lot of layers and nuances and depth to these characters. Heather Chandler is not just a king bitch. She's not just a queen bitch. You know, there's more to her than just that. She actually is one of those characters where you find out that in order to maintain her popularity, she has to do a lot of unsavory things. Suck off these asshole jocks. Put on a smile on her face. You know, this kind of thing where she acts like she's this perfect teen, and she's really, in a lot of ways, a manipulative slut. Which in a lot of ways you saw in a lot of these films when you had like the villain, it was just very plain. Cut and dry. They're just bad. They're just evil. There's no extra anything behind that character. You had that here with Heather Chandler, played by Kim Walker. Now, you also had the other Heathers in the group who also had more to them, which really showcases how strong the characters are in this film. One of the most important factors for me when it comes to a successful film is the characters. And Heather's has some absolutely awesome characters. These are some really well-written characters that are so well-rounded, so well-written, that it feels like you're watching real characters, like real people. Not just a character written for a film. There's a realism to these characters, and a relatability to these characters, especially to Winona Ryder's character, Veronica Sawyer. But you have stuff like with Shannen Doherty, who plays Heather Duke, who, once she's given the opportunity to be the new lead Heather, she relishes the opportunity. So and you always kind of have this sort of thing in the background where it kind of felt like she was jealous of Heather Chandler's success anyway. You know, she's just like, I really want what she has. And of course, eventually, that's what she ends up getting, thanks to JD, who sets things up for her. And one character in particular that I thought was really well done was Heather McNamara, played by Lisanne Falk. Now, Heather McNamara, she's a popular girl. She's a member of the Heathers group. She's a cheerleader. But once Heather Chandler dies, she starts to show a side of her that you didn't really see. You get to see that maybe she didn't really want to be a part of this group, but she's just there, just like Winona Ryder's character was trying to do, in order to advance her career and to open up more opportunities for her in the future. And a lot of peer pressure is making her join this group, and she's more of an outsider, just like Veronica, just like Winona Ryder's character. And that's why those two develop a friendship at some point during the film. And there's a certain vulnerability that you see with Heather McNamara's character, which is also really nice to see. So these aren't just cookie cutter, oh, these Heathers, they're just bad girls. There's more to it, and I really appreciated that about the film. And I loved how comically they interpreted the jocks. Like, these guys are just your typical, stereotypical, cliched jocks, but they are shown in a less than favorable light, and I thought that was a good idea, because they showed that these guys aren't really that smart. And a lot of the times when you see these films with these jocks, the jocks are just bullies, and they're respected by their community, but they're never shown as a bunch of fools. And this film shows that. It shows that these guys are fucking morons. These guys are fucking idiots. And it's surprising that they're even popular because of how fucking stupid they are. So, and then you have the whole thing with the characters and how they get set up to look like they shot each other because they were gay lovers, and then the reactions that their parents have is just classic. I love my dead gay son. I mean, it's the kind of line that you don't think would work, but in the film it works so well because of just how well structured the film is. And even a character like Martha Dumptruck, played by Carrie Lynn, who is a character who is your typical nerdy, overweight girl who's bullied and treated like crap. She actually gets the last scene with the lead, Winona Ryder. And there's more to her character, too, where you actually learn to sympathize with her a lot more than you might have with a lot of these other bullies in some of these other John Hughes high school films, or these John Hughes inspired high school films from around the same time, where you have like the bullied kid, but the kid's in the background is just getting bullied, and it just establishes how much of an asshole the jocks are, or just establishes how vile the villains are in the film, but doesn't really do much else other than that. So this actually gives more to the character and shows you that there's actually a human character. Like, there's a human being behind the character of Martha Dumptruck Dunstock. Now, the film also has a great soundtrack. I thought they did a really good job picking the right songs for the film. Not only do you have the fun song that was created just for the movie, Teenage Suicide, Don't Do It, which became a huge hit after the string of suicides that had happened at Westerberg High during the film, which sounds like something that actually would happen in real life, especially around the time. They also have a really great version of Que Sera, Sera by Sly and the Family Stone, and I believe it's Sly and the Family Stone. Yeah, they also had one by Sid Straw. The producer, Denise Denovi, wanted to have the original Doris Day version of the song, but Day would not let them use the song in the film because the movie was full of profanity, so they didn't really like that. So, yeah, great soundtrack. Once again, going back to the script, it's a really, like I said, it's a brilliant satire of the John Hughes style of high school comedy. It also deals a lot of really heavy, rough subjects and manages to make it funny, and it's offensive, but that's the point. This is a film that would never be made today. Never be made today. With all the school shootings, the climax of the film where JD is setting up bombs in the school and is going to blow it up, that would never happen today. And that's one of the things that, like I said, makes it irreverent, makes it a film that stands the test of time, because as the years have gone on, the film has just gained even more notoriety and has become a movie that really sticks out in a good way in our PC culture nowadays. Now, if the Heathers reboot does something like, well, the group of the new Heathers we see, which I have to admit I was a bit too harsh on describing the new Heather Chandler and calling her a beached whale and all of that. I was over exaggerating things for comedic effect. I didn't merely intend to offend a lot of people, and if I did, I apologize. But despite that, if they do something where these new Heathers are like mega SJWs and they're just poking fun at the social justice warrior type mentality, that could be actually really brilliant, and that could be something that I actually would not mind seeing. But I don't see them doing that. I don't think they're going to have the balls to do that, especially from the Paramount Network, who is the ones that own MTV. And MTV has gone total SJW recently. But going back to that, yeah, I mean, you got this suicide. The suicide is a big part of the plot, and it manages to make you still like the character of Winona Ryder, despite the fact that she's an accessory to murder. Really, she is. And Christian Slater is a villain that you love to hate, because he's this outsider. And Christian Slater just does such a great job with the role. But I have to admit, he's just imitating Jack Nicholson throughout the whole movie. And I think he's even admitted that. So, but, that's fine. I mean, it fits. It fits with this character of JD. In a lot of ways, JD to me is the male equivalent of a femme fatale in this film. Like a femme fatale in a film noir film. Because he is manipulating Veronica. He's leading her on. He's getting her involved in the string of crimes. And ultimately he becomes a villain at the end of the film. And she has to get in a showdown with him to not only save herself, but to save the entire school. Now, I know the original ending of the film was different. It was supposed to end with JD successfully blowing up the school and everyone is now getting along in heaven. I am glad the film didn't end that way, because the film was nihilistic and bleak enough as it is. If it went that extra mile, it really would have hurt the film to me. I still probably would have liked it, but I would have been like, I wasn't a fan of the ending, and it made it so it wasn't a film that I loved, and a film that I'd watch over and over again. The way that it's set up with Veronica besting JD at the end actually makes it a much stronger film to me. It makes it a movie that has a heart to it, which actually went a long way for me. And the ending where she's talking about where she takes the power away from Heather, literally takes it off her head. The character Heather Duke, played by Shannen Doherty. And she goes in and takes the power back and essentially takes the lead role of the Queen of Westerberg High, and talks to Martha and asks her if she wants to go hang out later and watch some movies. And it was actually a quite poignant ending, I thought, and it was sweet. It was a sweet way to end the film, and I really liked that. So if it ended differently, I wouldn't really have liked it as much. But that being said, I know there are fans of the film who wish that was the ending, and that's cool, to each their own, but I like the ending the way it is. I don't really know what else to say about Heathers. I didn't really want to go super in depth. I mean, I didn't want to give away a lot of things about the movie. I want people to see it for themselves. I know I talked about, I mentioned some spoilers here and there, but in terms of the plot synopsis, I don't really need to go into that. I personally feel it's a great plot, though. It deals with some pretty heavy subject matter like teenage suicide, but does it in a way that is actually quite hilarious. And if you can get past that whole initial, oh no, like that's too much of a touchy subject feeling, I think you can enjoy yourself. And there's just so many things about the film that work so well. Another thing that I thought really was so wonderful about Heathers was the cinematography, the direction, and the lighting. Michael Lehmann's direction in this. I love his direction in this film. Right from the beginning, it sews you into your seat because of just how surreal it is, with this surreal croquet match. And it's got this dreamlike, nightmarish quality throughout it. The camera, there's some really great camera techniques. The use of close-ups and of pans and of zooms and things like that, and all these other elements that work so well together. The lighting is also one of the things I really, really liked about the film, because it really gave the film a unique atmosphere that made it look like it was something out of somebody's dreams or a nightmare, or it just looked like it was definitely something not of this earth, or not from our reality. But at the same time, the film still had a lot of things that were very real and felt like they came straight from a lot of people's hearts and their minds. And that's another big reason why the film is so popular to this day, is because it's very relatable, especially to young women, to young girls who see this movie and see a lot of themselves in Veronica and root for her. And that makes the film so much more impactful and powerful, especially if you're able to connect to it in that way. I'm not able to connect to it in that same way, but I was still able to connect to her character because I was an outsider in high school. I didn't try to get in with the popular crowd, but if I did, I would be just as out of place as Veronica was with the Heathers. And I just get sick of the shit and leave and try to do my own thing. So yeah, it's definitely a one-of-a-kind film. And it's too bad that this wasn't a breakout role for Winona Ryder. It should have been. She was great in this. And she got some other roles later on in her career, like, of course, Edward Scissorhands and so on. But her career never really took off after this. And in a lot of ways, I think she was kind of typecast because of roles like this and in Beetlejuice as this goth chick, which I think was too bad. I think she's actually a really talented actress. And she's definitely showing that in Stranger Things, which is, I'm really glad she got the role in that. But this was a risk for her. And I'm glad she took it, because she, in my opinion, delivered the best performance of her career. And it's one that will be fondly remembered not only by myself, but by millions of fans of the film, and for good reason. She took a risk. Even her agent was like, don't do this. You're committing career suicide if you take this role. Because even back in 1988, this was a really controversial plot and a controversial film. But she took the risk, and it didn't really do that much for her career. So it's not like it killed her career, and it's not like it really made her get more roles either. It just, and it might have made her get a few more roles here and there, but it didn't really make her a breakout star or anything, which I personally felt was a little bit too bad, because I feel this is a breakout role, and it would have been nice to see Hollywood recognize that and give her more work because of that. But as it is, that's fine. Things happen for a reason, and in a lot of ways, maybe it's a good thing that this film wasn't a huge hit, because then it wouldn't really have the same sort of cult attachment to it. And I think that's something that really makes it stand out even more, that it's this film that still has a following. It's a film that people still think about, despite the fact they think about and talk about. Think about. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about the movie, that's for sure. A little bit too much, apparently. This is a film that people still think about, people still talk about to this day, and it's a movie that didn't really do that well financially. It was barely in the theater. It didn't really leave that much of an impression. A lot of critics weren't really that fond of it at the time. But as the years have gone by, a lot of critics have sweetened on the film, have given it its much-deserved credit. And it's gained a huge following of fans, legions of fans. It's got a musical. Danny Waters wanted to do a sequel, and Winona Ryder was up for it, which makes the reboot TV series even more frustrating to me when I learn about that, because I'm like, man, I wish we just had that. I'd rather see that. Do the sequel. Do the sequel that's been gestating for a long time, that Winona Ryder is passionate about doing, that Daniel Waters is working on. But no, we're getting this reboot TV series, which, yeah, I know, just from a 1-minute clip, I think is going to suck, but it just doesn't look like it's taking the right approach. But that still shows you the power of the film. That despite the fact the movie wasn't successful critically or financially when it came out, it's still popular enough that it's getting a reboot TV series and it's going to be the flagship show for Paramount's rebranding of Spike TV, the Paramount Network. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about Heathers. I probably said more than enough already, except I hope you guys enjoyed the video, or you gals, because I've noticed that I've actually had a few more, gals who have watched some of my videos recently when I did the random, the Heathers reboot, and I hope you enjoyed this video, because it's a film that I really enjoyed, and it's a movie that is definitely on my best of list now. But anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.